Okay, so we're going to start looking at functions today. And what is a function? It's a, and some of the synonyms for function are subroutine, procedure, subprogram. Those of you who did Visual Basic, I know that that Visual Basic breaks it. There are two distinct classes. They do have functions, and they also have, I think what they call them is sub-programs or I just didn't say subroutine. They do distinguish between function and subroutine, right? Whereas a function has a return value and a subroutine doesn't. And those of you in the Flash programming, was there such a distinction between a function and a subroutine or a subprogram? No? Yeah, you know, a lot of it depends on how the language defines it. In PHP, any subprogram, any subroutine or subset of code is a function, all right? And a function is, again, it's a sequence of code which performs a specific task. So, for instance, back to the project, you could have a function that just prints a question. The name of the function is print question. You send it some stuff, it returns the answer. And then you might have a function that loops through and prints out all the choices. All right, so you go to print choices. You just say that one line of code, print choices, and it goes to another part of your file, runs through the code for printing the choices, and you come back right to where you were. So really, you can simplify the look and feel of your code tremendously by using functions. So why should you do it? Well, you want to be able to reuse your code, hopefully. You simplify readability, and you can share your code with others. And as you know, PHP comes with a lot of pre-packaged functions. Give me two functions that you've used recently in PHP. No, those are not functions, those are variables. So how do you display an array easily?
_r.
Print r, right? That's a function. Well, that is a function. You give it an array, it spits out results. That's a PHP function. String length, strlen, right? Count, all of those are just functions.
File put and get contents.
What's that?
File put contents.
File put contents, right? So all of those perform a specific task. They're reusable. They're functions. All right. So how do you declare a function? It's very simple. You use the function keyword and then the name of your function that you're creating. So again, for the your program, I'm gonna call it fun1.php. You might declare a function called print question. Okay, you use you use parentheses. You have to have parentheses after your function name, and then you have some code in here. Okay, however long you want that code to be. You finish it up with the curly brackets. So you start your curly brackets, you end your curly brackets. You have some code in the middle, and then somewhere down the line, and normally what I do is I put my functions at the end of my file. I don't mix them in. Okay, so you might have a main program, right? And you're probably going to run a for each loop. I don't know what that for each loop is going to look like, so it's going to be for each blah as blah blah. So and you should probably do it for each question, right? As blah blah blah. All right. However, you're defining that question for each question as blah blah blah, and one of the things you would do is you would reference this function that has all the code for printing out that question. You'd refer to it here. In other words, and what do you call this? You've taken Intro to Programming. This right here, this print question, you're calling the function, right? So it's a function call. So here's the function definition. Here's the function call.
So can you call it? You can call it above the function. It's
Yeah.
not linear.
It's not linear. Yeah, it'll
I was
PHP
confused.
will go and pre-compile and check everything, and what it'll say is, hey, you know what? If you haven't defined print question, and it's not in my library of functions, those 2,500 or so built-in functions, it'll say, hey, wait a minute, can't do this, all right? But as long as you define it, this is going to work.
All right.
Make sense? Okay, so that's really what this is getting at right here. You define a function, so page header. You have some code. You start the function. You end the function with curlies. Page footer, same thing. And then you call the function by just calling its name. Okay, so access functions by calling their names. Questions so far? Pretty standard stuff. You guys have all dealt with functions and subroutines and that sort of thing. Okay, this is the first place where it gets a little interesting though. Passing arguments. Okay, functions can, and they probably should, accept input values to change their output or their behavior. So, instead of just function page header 2 or page header, you might do function page header 2 where you send it a color. $ color. And notice inside the function call there is a reference to that variable, color. So we've passed it an argument and then we've used it inside the function. All right, these are called arguments. And so you know these might be the function calls down here. Well, how does that apply back to our for each loop up here? So we have for each question as blah blah, which is probably not a good name, but anyway, it probably would make more sense to send an argument to print question. And if print question down here, the function, notice the function print question has its own argument called which one, right? And then your code might be print, something with which one. Okay, that's up to you. I'm not going to solve your problem for you, but you see that this print question function contains an argument of which one, which somewhere inside the function, the code of the function, you're accessing which one, and then the actual function call. Notice I have blah blah there. So what does this mean? Well, blah blah is actually substituted into which one. So it's a one-to-one relationship between the function call and the function definition. So literally whatever is inside blah blah gets placed into which one and then accessed here. And I know you do this in VB. I'm sure you do it in Flash, but again, it was a while ago. So what do you suppose would happen if I do this, where I say down here in the function, which one is now equal to the blank string?
It's still print something with blah blah.
It's still going to print something with blah blah. Good, good. But now I'm blanking out which one. What effect does that have on blah blah?
Nothing.
The answer is nothing. That's good, because when you do this sort of one-to-one relationship, you do something called pass by value, where you're just sending a copy of the contents of blah blah to which one. So right here, when you do print question, it says, hey, okay, got this blah blah, going to make a photocopy of it and send just the copy down to print question. Print question is going to do some stuff. It's going to change the copy, but the original stays the same. All right, and that's an important note. So no matter what I do inside here to which one, it doesn't change the value of blah blah, which is important. That's typically what you want your functions to do. You don't want them to change the values of the arguments. So anyway, I tried to get to that reference here in passing arguments. Okay, and okay, good. What this is basically saying here, what this slide is saying, is that if I try to do this, I'm printing question with just blank here, right? Nothing in the parentheses. The function is defined to be with one argument. Which one? In this situation, you're going to get a PHP error. It's going to say, hey, wait a minute. I'm expecting an argument. You didn't give me one, so I'm going to crash and burn. I'm going to say, hey, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this anymore, right? There has to be a one-to-one relationship between the number of arguments and in the function call as in the function definition.
So what if you just put in, when you called it, what if you just put in something, and something being just something, not a variable, some word, would it still print, which one still print something with that? All right.
Yeah. All right. So watch. In fact, this is, I mean, we might as well do this. I'm going to get rid of the for each. Okay. What is the exact output of this going to be?
Something with 3, 2.
Something with 3, 2, 4, 3, 2, 3. Exactly. Let's try it. Make sure. Right. What is this going to do? Well, it depends on how you have your environment set up. I believe this is still going to execute, but it's going to give you an error message. Let's just make sure. Yeah, it gives you a big nasty PHP warning. It says, wait a minute, missing an argument 1 for print questions. That's a pretty clear answer, but it still goes through with it. Okay, but it's not right. It's not right. You got to fix that. Okay, so be aware of that. What if I tried to do this? Same type of error, but now you got too many arguments, right? But you know what? It says, you know what? At least I got the first argument, so I'm happy. So
what do you call it? Aren't there some functions where it has like multiple calls, but you don't have to put all those references in, if you know what I'm saying?
Like optional?
Yeah, like optional ones.
Yeah. I'm glad you asked. I'm glad you asked. All right. So far, so good, though? You kind of understand what's going on here? Jen, you good? Okay, cool. I'm glad you asked. Because you can define default values for arguments.
All right.
And the way you do that is you still define your argument, color, $color, but if you put an equals, you can define a default value if it doesn't get sent. So, let me go back to my example and clear this out. Oops. Okay, so I'm defining a print function with a single argument named which one, and which one is equal to 45. I'm going to define up here, just so we're clear on it, x is equal to 12. I'm going to print question x. What's going to be the output? Something with 12. Because we sent it with an argument, it got passed to this value, so it didn't have to use the default value of 45. It used what you sent it, and it printed it out. So it'll print something with 12. Good. And notice which one gets set. So let me set, just because we're using numbers here just for simplicity, which one gets set to 19 when we're done? It's the same which one is here, it's the same which one is here, right? Which one gets set back to 19? What's going to happen if I print out x? here. And what I probably want to do is do a new line. Oops. Okay, so it's going to print something with 12. And what's going to be the result of this print x right here? It's still going to be 12, yeah. It's not going to change that value. Oops, what did I do wrong? Line 5. Oh. Something with 12 and 12. Good? Kowalski, you good? What if I print which one?
You won't do anything because it's a local variable.
Yeah, this has to do with scope, which is towards the end of the slide, but it makes sense. We can probably handle this. So this is going to print question or something with 12, and then it's going to print nothing. Because which one has is not in the main program, it's just hidden inside this function, right? So the which one variable is local to this function.
Now, if you made it x equals which one, will x hold the value of which one, or no?
You mean like
inside the function, if you after which one, if you made x equals which one, would x now equal 19?
You're allowed to do this, but okay. So let's do. What if I did x equals 19? Is that what you're asking?
Well, no. I'm asking if you made x inside of that equal which one, the variable which one.
Okay.
And then will x now equal which one?
Or 19. I mean, it doesn't matter. Okay, so let's just do which one. Okay.
Well, because you can make it equal 19 with inside that, but
what do you suppose is going to happen? That's a good question. So we're going to print out x here.
So we'll probably print the 12.
But you see, that's not going to really tell us anything because which one is equal to 12 also, right?
Well, no. Which one's equal to? Oh well.
You see what I'm saying? So
if you make which one equal to 19.
Okay. Well, let's not bother. What if I do x equals 19 here? So watch what's happening here. I'm coming down here, setting x equal to 12, printing out the question, sending it x. X goes into which one, right? So now we're executing this code. I'm printing out. I'm setting x equal to 19, and I'm returning back to the very end. So I go to the next line. I print out x. What's this print statement going to print?
19.
Everybody agree 19?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It printed 12. Why?
Because it prints before the x equals 19.
What does that do for you? You're right, but I don't know if you know why you're right.
Java is similar to it.
Yeah, I know. Okay, but why? You're right, and I need you to explain
Is it
better.
the linear aspect of it?
Because any variable that I define inside my function is local to that function.
Even if it's not.
This x is an x inside this function. This x is an x in program scope.
Alright.
This is in function or module scope.
How about if you need to do that, pass the value inside the function to the main program?
I think I know what you're saying.
You guys, I mean, inside the print question function, you need to assign a new value to x in the main program.
Yeah. I mean, there are ways to do that. But long story short, this x is local in scope, and it's different from this x, which is global in scope, right? So it's like two guys named Joe in the same room. They might both be named Joe, but they're different Joes, right? So this x is x that belongs here. This x is x that belongs out here. If I create another function, I can create another variable x that's completely different. So they're two unique memory locations.
Which might make readability go down, but
No, it does. It doesn't. I mean, because here's the important thing: when you're writing functions, it's very important that your function doesn't have side effects. And what do I mean by side effects? Unintended consequences. So if I create a function that changes the value of something that's global, and I use it, how do I can't, if I use it in a different program, it's also going to make that change globally, and it might not be what I want to do. So a good programming technique is to make sure that when you're dealing with functions, deal entirely in local values. And so this x doesn't conflict with this x. All right? Okay, well let's see if you got it then. Okay, now I'm using all x's, right? I don't even have which one. So let me change this to x. Okay, so I have x equals 12. I print the question, send it 12, right? So 12 gets sent down to here, but is it the same 12?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's a
Copy.
copy of the 12. It's a copy of 12. It made a copy, so it's got a whole new memory location now. Sends that 12 down here, and that copy of 12 is now local to this routine, right? I print out 12. I change it to 19. Did anything actually get changed? Yes. That memory location got changed to 19, but we're at the end of the function, so that memory location is actually gone at this point, right? And I return back here, and what am I printing out? I'm going to print out 19 or 12 here. 12. Printing out 12. Because that memory location is gone. It's very, very important that you understand that distinction. If you got that, you're halfway there with functions. All right? Good. Now there is a way to pass, this is called pass by value. There is a way to pass by reference. I'm not covering that. All right? You can look that up if you want. Because it's, I think it serves to confuse at this point. All right, so now, what's the output of this program going to be?
12.
X equals 12. Print question. Print x, which we think is going to be 12, right? So we all agree that this at this point that this print statement is going to be 12.
15 and then 12.
So what's it going to print? It's going to print something with
15. And
15. Why 15?
Because it's the default.
Because I didn't send it an argument, so it uses the default that I passed it. So that's how you can do multiple default arguments, right? And you can do this with as many different variables as you want. So I can do x equals 15 and y equals 20. And now let's do something with x and y. What's this going to print out? Something with 15 and 20, right? Agreed? What's this going to print out? Something with
10.
10 and 20. 10 and 20, right? Because it sees the 10, substitutes it in for the x. It sees nothing else, so it uses the default value of 20, right? Something with 10 and 20. And if I give it 2 arguments, I don't want to do that. This will print out something with 10 goes to the x, 13 goes to the y. It'll print out something with 10 and 13.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Now how you have the y there, can you put like anything in there? Would 13 go into that?
Can I put in what?
Like a z inside the y, would that matter?
You mean here? Or up here?
No, where you see where the 20 is? Y equals 20. Why if you put like a z there?
Oh, I can use, and I get complete freedom to choose my variables
Okay.
there. And the point is that these variables are local. So they don't affect anything out here, which is important. You want that to be the case. You don't want it to have any, what's the word I used? Side effects, right? No side effects. All right, so
That's good to know.
$1 million question. Ready? Let's do x equals 12, y equals 40. Print question, $y, comma, $x plus 1. Or no, let's just do $y, $x.
340 and 12.
Something with 40 and something with 12.
Okay, something with
40 and 12.
something with 40
40 and 12.
and 12. Why? Because even though this is a y, it gets the first argument gets passed to the first parameter. So first goes to first. It doesn't matter what they're named. Remember, they're different. So the 40 goes to the x, the 12 goes to the y, and it's just copies of those things, so it has no effect on the actual values. So if I were to print out x here, it's still going to be, well,
I think a little bit of Inception tricked me up the first time I was looking at it. So.
Inception.
Well, because it's like, and then it's
It
like,
is,
and
yeah.
so I think that a little bit confused
And
me.
then try to have, you can have functions that pass to other functions, and yeah, so
Yeah.
you can truly get into
Yeah.
4 levels of dream state.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a great movie. I tried to watch it with my I tried to watch it with my 14-year-old daughter though, and it just, you know, it wasn't she's
going
not
on?
that she's
What's
not there
going
yet.
on?
Yeah, she's like, I had no idea what was going on there. All right, so so you got that, I think, right? And the notion of side effects. So you want to avoid doing anything globally if you don't have to. Now there is a way to use global variables, but I'm going to avoid that topic for now. Oops, I don't want to do that. Let's get back to notes. All right, we covered all this. This is what we just covered with the side effects. So you can look that over on your own. Returning values. Okay, so normally functions are going to are used to perform some actions, but I'd say 9 times out of 10, well, not 9 times, it depends on how you code, but a lot of times you're not only going to just send it stuff and expect it to your function to do stuff, but you're also going to ask it to pass information back to you, right? Okay, so for this example right here, I have a function called simple. And it doesn't do anything, right? It doesn't print anything. There's no print statements in simple. The only thing it does is it returns the string simple. So what that does is it says, hey, you know what? Wherever you called me from, I'm going to hand back the string simple to that calling part. So let's see how good you are. What is going to be the output of this code right here at the bottom of this page? It's PHP, function simple, no arguments, return simple. It hands back a string, and you're calling it simple down here. What's the output going to be?
Simple.
It's going to be an error.
It's actually not going to be an error,
This is gonna
but you're
be-
thinking along the right lines, and it's not going to be simple. What's it going to be? All right, do I have it? Let me go to see if I have this in weak. Well, actually, I might as well just do it, right? So we got function simple, and I'm going to just return simple. And I'm going to get rid of all this junk, or all these print statements at least, right? And I'm just going to go simple. Who thinks they know? What do you think, Sean? You look like you're on top of this. What's the output of that program going to be? Well, no, don't be confused. Don't be confused.
It's going to be blank.
I wasn't
You're right, David.
confused before, but now I'm confused.
David's right. I didn't expect that.
I think you type simple with, instead of a string, return simple.
How cool. And what is that called?
Oops.
That has a name. It's an oopsie, but it's got a name.
Inception?
It is Inception. It's what we call recursion. It's a recursive function call. You can have a function call itself, and that's actually a programming technique that, to be honest, I understand it. I still, after 30-something years of programming, I still struggle with it. So I'm not going to, but it is a recursive function call. I didn't mean to do that. I meant to return.
That's why I was confused.
That's why you were confused. Okay, you're off the hook. This is what I meant to write. What's the output going to be? David says
Nothing.
nothing, and he's right. Nothing. Why? Because I call my function simple. All it does is it hands back simple, but it doesn't do anything with it. You're returning this is called a function return, and it's in a null sense. It doesn't do anything with that result. So if you wanted it to actually output the word simple, what should you do? You could either print simple down here in the function, or print simple here. So you got the function, you return simple, the string simple gets replaced here, and you're printing it out.
So is it putting, by doing the return simple, is it putting string simple into simple as an argument?
No.
Or, oh, okay.
It's this, you can think of this whole function as being replaced by the return value.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the function executes, this information gets sent back, and it gets,
Kind of like a variable?
yeah, I guess you could think of a function as sort of like a variable. Yeah,
At that
it's
point,
not,
when
but
you're returning it?
in the sense that, yeah, that
Too much like Java.
it gets, it's exactly, they're all programming languages are exactly the
I have
same.
a question.
Yeah, it's just how they're implemented.
I have
Yeah.
a question. Like,
Yeah.
does that matter if you put an exclamation point on there?
No, it's just a part of the string. Yeah,
Okay.
it's part of the string. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's all
Literally Java.
languages are the same. It's just they're implemented differently. Right.
It's
Yeah,
knowing
this
the
one
logic
is
behind
just
them.
literally
It's-
Java. Like that's literally all.
Right. That's it. Yeah. Because it's a tried and true and tested approach to working with this stuff.
It's just
All right, so you understand that. So here's a great one then. So, oh, and by the way, okay, here's a good one. What's this going to print? Notice I've modified my function so that my function simple returns this weird string, simple and then a little Swedish, and then hello.
It's not going to print hello.
So what's it going to print out?
Simple gobbledygook.
It's going to print
Hello.
simple Swedish, and then
Nothing.
it actually never gets to that. Because whenever a function gets to a return statement, that's it. It's done, and it short circuits, and it goes back to the main program. Okay, so as soon as you hit a return, you're done with the function. And that can be useful in programming, in design. Let's make sure. Agreed? Okay, so here's what you can do. Let me just show you. Oh, here, let's do this. Because I know I have a good example in here. The return values slide. Let me have you do this. First of all, ask yourself, what is this going to print out exactly as it appears here? So you've got a function foo. Print inside foo, your print in function, return 1, print leaving function, print foo. What's the exact output going to be?
Does foo mean something? Because they use it in a lot of examples for PHP and stuff.
Foo is an old, Unix
Function one.
thing, and there's Unix programmers have always used foo and bar as
All right.
sort of like
Yeah.
test strings. So whenever you see foo and bar, it means somebody has been doing Unix.
It always makes me think of those like little Asian guard dog things, those statues. Those are called foo dogs. So it
Are
makes
they?
me think of those. And
Oh, yeah, it might have something to do
I
with it.
don't
I'm not
know,
sure.
but
Okay, so does everybody agree? In function 1, in function 1, so it prints print foo. It will print in function, returns 1, But this is important. The in function part gets printed out while it's still inside the function. When does the 1 get printed out?
When?
Actually, after you've returned, and it replaces this foo with 1, but it still does in function 1. And I think I might have this example somewhere. It's probably in week 6. It's under return value. Oh, okay, I have this actually. This has been changed. Okay, so
So what's the difference in just doing the return 1 versus doing print 1 and leaving the print leaving function off completely?
okay, well,
Because
hold
you're
on a
not gonna
second.
get that.
Okay, so this is the problem that was there, and then we're just printing out foo, right? And notice when you access a function, you have to use the parentheses to say, hey, I'm calling a function here. Okay, so we all agree this is going to be in function 1. What if I get rid of the print statement? What's it going to print now?
1.
Or in function? No.
Into 1.
Then
It's going to be in function.
It just prints in function. Why?
What did you get rid of again?
I got rid of the print statement in front of the foo and the
Oh.
function call. Right? So why did it print in function? Well, because it says go to function foo. So we go to function foo, and the first thing is a print statement, so it does it. And then it returns the value of 1, but in a null sense. We don't do anything with the 1. It just kind of, it's there, and then it gets thrown away. We call that the bit bucket. It gets thrown in the bit bucket. It's thrown away. Because we didn't print it out, we didn't do anything with it. What if I did this? Now what happens to the 1?
We become a
X equals 1.
X equals 1, so X is now equal to that return value. So we're doing something with the X, we're just not displaying it. So a lot of times that's what you're going to do with function values too, is set them equal to a variable. Or do something with them. Are you happy? Cool. Alright.
So is that how you get the local variables to be persistent outside
Exactly. That's exactly the way that you want to do that. You want to create some magic inside your function and return back or pass back those values that you want to access.
Alright.
Right, and you can pass back arrays also. So if you have multiple values you want to send back an array,
Alright.
and then just access the array. Well, so that's good too. Questions? Okay, we're gonna have plenty of opportunity with this. Play around with it. Return types and scopes. I mean, you know, I think we've talked about this now. So there's global scope, also known as program scope, and then there is function or local scope, module scope, modules depending on how. So each function has its own scope, and so we've done this. All right, we've already covered that, so you can take a look at that. And then finally, there are ways to globally access variables, and it's not recommended. In fact, I'm going to ask that you avoid this unless you can't think of any other way. But you can use global variables inside a function or access the program scope function by either using the globals array written this way or by using the global keyword. I'm going to just show you an example. The example's written here. But let me just show you the example. And I don't like it. I'm not going to like it. But let me just change the foo function here. Now let me just call it global. Oh, I do have a globals function. Let me call it globals1. Okay, and I'm going to get rid of this x equals foo. I'm going to set x equal to 20. Right? What's this going to print out? Oh, if I call foo. What's this going to print out?
In
One
function
function.
20.
Everybody agree in function 20? Why are we wrong?
You forgot
Class,
the
why
last,
are we
Oh,
wrong?
'cause it's gonna print out a blank.
You got the last one. Okay.
What's that?
Because X is
Oh, no,
local
no.
now.
What happened to the 20?
It's local versus global.
X is defined globally. This X is local, right?
Oops.
So it doesn't print out anything. Yeah. These are test questions. This is exactly what I ask on the test. That's a global 20. That's a local 20. They don't know about each other. So it's not going to print anything out. But what if I really did want to print out this 20? What are my approaches here?
Putting X when you
Put
call a
X in the
function.
loop.
You,
X.
you should do this. This is the way to do it. Now it'll print out the 20, right? Because I passed it as a
Right.
parameter, as an argument. Good. What if I don't want to pass it as an argument? Well, you should. You should, but if you don't want to, you can do the globals keyword and the global keyword, and you would do it inside the function. But it will work. I'll even keep that bad misspelling in there. Oops. What did I do wrong here?
Line 10.
Oh. Got rid of that side. See, it worked. Print out the 20. But it is what? Bad. Bad, bad, bad. So you don't want to deal with global variables if you don't have to. It's just as easy to define the function past the variable x, right? I should get rid of that. What's another way? A little bit less bad, but still ugly, is there is this globals. For every variable, this is true for every variable that you define in your main program, it populates something called the globals array. And so you can access that globals array down here. And let me do this better. This $x also populates something we call a super global array called globals, which has as one of its keys x. So that'll work. It's not bad, bad, bad. It's just ugly, ugly, ugly. But it'll work. All right. And to boot, watch this. So far, we understand what's going on here. Globals x plus plus. What if I print out x up here now?
It's 21. Or no, it's
Is it still going to be 20 or is it going to be 21?
still going to be 20 because it's a post increment. Right? No, I don't know.
It's going to be
Yes,
21.
it's 21. Okay.
Because. Because. And you see why I like to avoid this? Because it can get ugly. Let me clear this out. Because this global's $x is exactly the same memory location as this. It's two different names for the same memory location. It's like Joe and Jose. Right? Joe and Jose are the same guy. Right? Give me a, let's see, what's your Spanish name? Pablo. So Paul and Pablo. But it's the same person, right? Two different names. $x, globals sub x, point to the same memory location. So you got a lot to remember. So what would I suggest? And I will not ask you about the globals array on an exam, because I don't like it. Never going to like it. But I will ask you about the global keyword because it's so bad. And the same thing will happen with if you update X. If you declare X globally, God help you, and you do X++, as soon as you do global X, you're modifying the actual memory location up here, which is not good. Okay? So anyway, I think that's it. Any questions so far? Okay, and that's the end of the note packet. And so ultimately, what are we going to use functions for? We're going to use them to simplify our code, to take care of tasks, to break them out into bite-sized pieces, to make our main program very readable, and take care of the nitty-gritty and the details off in some other part of the program, right? And then down the road to share with each other, because probably if you're going to go out and get a job coding somewhere, yeah, sure, maybe you're the webmaster of your own site and you're the only one coding that. But if you're in some sort of a project team where you're developing software, you're probably working with people. And so in that situation, you might write a module, that person might write a module, and then you have to expose your modules to each other, and it's just got to work, and they got to be able to just say, print question, and know that it's going to work. Right, so that's ultimately where we're going with this.